What makes you stick with a game throughout all the years? Is it the gameplay, a story or character that you can always return to, or something else? A long time ago, Left 4 Dead was one of my favourite games. A game that you could play for hours on end, and in my opinion, the big part to that was the randomness of enemy spawns. It kept the game suspenseful and the tension high. No matter how many times you played a mission over and over, it was never the exact same. And while I would eventually stop playing Left 4 Dead, there would still be an urge to play cooperative shooters which matched that style. Enter Payday, the Heist. A cooperative shooter experience which I would always joke about being Left 4 Cops, with its heavy inspiration from Left 4 Dead, particularly with their different enemy units and the random generator which keeps you playing. Despite this though, Payday the Heist was never really one of my top games. I played it thinking that it looked interesting and saw a lot of the formula from Left 4 Dead, although it was more the building blocks of what would become that excited me. On my return to obtain footage, I was surprised by how weird the gameplay felt. It was most likely very good for its time, but sadly hasn't aged all that well. The skill system is very linear, providing certain buffs from progressing perks, with limited selections to directly affect your heisting experience to pick from. The heists, however, absolutely slap, with the First World Bank still being one of my favourites after all of these years. The main sad point to the first Payday game is the lack of stealth, or how basic the stealth system is. Payday the Heist was made by a smaller studio called Overkill, which was founded back in 2009 by Ulf Anderson, Bo Anderson and Simon Vikland. However, it wouldn't be long until they would later be acquired by Starbreeze in 2012, prior to the launch of Payday 2. In August of 2013, Payday 2 quickly sold and was a clear step up from the previous game, improving upon many aspects such as the gun feel and skills, creating a more curated experience. Although it had some major issues with the lack of content, as there was only 12 heists, with many of them being reskins, or the heists themselves not being quite as grandiose as from the previous installment. Thankfully, updates were quick to follow and ironed out a lot of the issues and bugs, while adding new heists like the Halloween event in October, the transporter missions in November, and Go Bank in December. But it wasn't until January of 2014 that we finally got the Infamy update. Around the same time, we also got the Gauge Weapon Pack 2, which introduced some new weapons, but the star part was the reintroduction of the cloaker enemy. Finally, now you could be jump scared as you got pinned down by an enemy that was just hiding somewhere you were oblivious to.
I got your DLC right here.
Between the major and smaller updates, Payday 2 was on the right track, although was still considered a bit too easy, at least by Payday the Heist fans. This all changed in February of 2014 when they added the Death Wish difficulty, a considerable step up from Overkill, with the Skulldozer terrorising random lobbies and being the bane of Infamy Zero players as they joined my pro job Big Oil and proceeded to ruin the heist. Pro jobs were later removed, which I don't particularly have a strong feeling one way or the other for, but another aspect which the Death Wish update brought was the addition of difficulty masks. These looked fantastic, and if you grinded enough to be Infamy 5 with a Death Wish mask, everyone thought that you were the guy, or a cheater. Shadow Raid was introduced in May of 2014, and say what you will about stealth, this heist was amazing for the time. As the first mandatory stealth heist, which excelled in learning the layout of the map and strategizing how you wanted to approach it. Big Bank then followed in June, which introduced pre-planning, and while I was never really too big of a fan of the heist, pre-planning took the game up a notch, making decisions before you even enter the heist that much more impactful. Then there was also the Hotline Miami collaboration in September and the Hoxton Breakout Heist in October. Both of these are still legendary loud heists, and back in the day you would find a lobby for either of these in a fraction of a second. One aspect that I want to explore more on is the stealth in this game. While it is typically not enjoyed by most of the community, and for your sanity, please never do stealth in a public lobby. I know how it can go. The stealth mechanics and ways in which the missions change to be stealthable are fantastic, and aside from Dishonored, I would say it is my absolute favourite stealth game. The system is simple, with guards having a radius that they can see you from, and a detection meter which fills up to 100%, meaning that they now detect you. Although, sadly, this is not indicated as a percentage in the base game, and I have a mod installed for numerical values. But it is complex in that there are other systems involved with this all. The weapons which you equip will determine where the detection meter starts from. So, ideally, you want to start as low as possible. The detection meter will also raise faster or slower depending on if you're crouching, running or sprinting. And there's a neat trick you can do to get the best of both worlds, where you sprint, then jump, then crouch, to keep the low detection of crouching but the speed of sprinting. The missions are also really fun in how they adapt key objectives, making it feel like a unique experience from going loud. And while going in guns blazing and keeping those helmets popping feels great, for me, it doesn't usually match the tension that stealth brings when you watch your detection go up to 90% and stress as you get yourself out of tight situations to finally complete the heist without anyone spotting you at all. There are also environmental clues to the missions, which will tell you certain passcodes or assist with the objectives, which is nice hunting them down during stealth and piecing the puzzle together. Payday 2 at its peak was a tremendous game and had a very loyal and passionate player base. Unfortunately though, it was an uphill climb to the peak, as Starbreeze and Overkill were constantly intertwined with controversy. For one, while the increased content was certainly appreciated, it started to become a bit of a joke how many DLCs there actually were. And if you got these without any sale, it started to amount to quite a lot. Eventually, some of the DLCs would be consolidated to a Game of the Year edition in 2014, and then an Ultimate edition in June 2017, and even further, a Legacy collection in October 2019. But for the longest while, I don't think Payday ever escaped the idea of just being a DLC farm. And to make matters worse, console players were pretty much left behind. I can't speak too much on this, as I haven't played any of the console versions, but I am aware that the frequency of updates was less than it should have been, creating quite the difference in games between the PC and console player base. Starbreeze also pushed a lot of funds to help develop 2 other games, hoping to strike lucky each time, just as Payday was now a proven success. However, both of these games, Overkill's The Walking Dead and Lion Games' Lion, Raid World War II, would be a complete miss. The bigger annoyance though was that many Payday 2 fans felt betrayed, as each time money would be diverted to other projects, only to have them fail and then return back to the golden goose of Payday 2 to sell yet another DLC. Particularly with the border crossing heist, when Overkill returned to make more DLC for Payday, it was a particularly sore subject and received extremely negatively, with a lot of players calling it a simple reskin and cash grab. Even still, there was another update which surpasses this: the Black Market. Releasing in October of 2015, it introduced safes and drills, essentially gambling, similar to cases from Counter-Strike, but even worse, skins had a small stat buff associated with them, which couldn't be obtained in any other way. This now created a pay-to-win environment, which everyone was quick to remind Overkill of a quote which previously mentioned never adding microtransactions into their game. But it was made even worse only 2 days later, with the addition of the Aftershock heist. Not only was this incredibly tone deaf from the reception of the safes, but the heist was also so annoying to play. The safes weighed an absolute ton, making it frustrating to move. And yes, you might have a lorry, but the vehicles in Payday have never been great. There were some other events which took place, though not quite as controversial. In early 2015, Overkill were in a rough spot financially and created the Overkill pack and the Completely Overkill pack. The latter costing 20 quid and would provide 4 unique masks along with some secret content, which would later be revealed as a special safe and a drill. In 2018, the Swedish Economic Crime Authority raided Starbreeze due to suspicions of insider trading, although sadly, we never got the Starbreeze heist. Lastly, due to licensing agreements, sadly some of the content is no longer obtainable, although thankfully if you previously purchased the content, you were still able to play it. The John Wick, Point Break, Hardcore Henry and Reservoir Dog heists were all delisted, as well as the Scarface character pack. Despite all of the controversy, Payday somehow still kept a strong and loyal fanbase though, and throughout all the years, there has been some exceptional content which has been made. Further updates brought more quality of life, as well as additional difficulties and modifiers to increase the replayability of the game. The additions between 2014 and 2017 brought many favourable heists, particularly with the Golden Green Casino, the return of the First World Bank, and a personal favourite of mine, the Yacht Heist, although that one is now delisted, so that's a little bit awkward. But all the while there are new seasonal missions being added for Christmas and Halloween, and although the border crossing heist was a complete miss, once Overkill got back into the swing of making Payday content and showed that it wasn't a simple cash grab, they made excellent heists from 2020, with Bullock's Mansion, the Dragon Pack, Black Cat Heist, and the final heist being Crude Awakening, which has an exceptional soundtrack to finish it off. I did want to touch on the story of Payday as well, but honestly that gets quite confusing and is best experienced either through doing it yourself or watching a complete video. But what Overkill excelled at was the community which they helped foster during this period. Despite all the hate that they got for some updates, justified or not, Overkill cultivated a loyal fanbase for Payday 2. And even now, with the newer game out, Payday 2 still holds strong on Steam with a consistent player base, regularly hitting the top 30 concurrent players. Payday 3 was released on the 21st of September 2023 with a 3-day early access for pre-orders of the gold and I think also the silver edition. However, not everyone could access this even if they did pre-order, and some people wouldn't obtain the other pre-order bonuses for some time after. Between the 18th and the 21st, the game was fun with minimal issues. But come the 21st, the servers are collapsing in real time. Constant nebula errors, matchmaking errors, infinite loading screens, long load times to play solo because the game for whatever reason is always online. And then, looking at the game with a finer comb, you see what a rush piece of slop it actually was. Payday 3 launched to a mixed reception and even hit very negative on Steam with 31% rating, mainly for the issues just noted. But while it felt like a step forward in some areas, it also felt like a considerable step back in others, and plenty of what made Payday 2 special or quality of life updates which we had from Payday 2 was simply forgotten. A quick example of this is the stats on the guns, which previously in Payday 2 were extremely vague, but were later updated to be easier to read and compare, creating a better experience for the player. For some reason, this was reverted in Payday 3, and was just one of the many design choices which left people scratching their head. Pre-planning had been gutted, and what was once an exciting and thought-provoking aspect of the game was severely lacking. The progression system was seemingly an afterthought. And rather than providing engaging challenges or the previous experience leveling up after heists, you would obtain experience through completing challenges, which a large number would just kill enemies with a certain weapon. This led to the bathroom meta, where people would camp in the bathroom of the penthouse heist and just kill enemies constantly. Thankfully, this was later changed, although hopefully engaging challenges are later introduced, as this would be a nice addition. Between the connection issues, lack of features and no in-game voice chat, probably the biggest issue of them all was that the game itself does not have anywhere near enough replayability. In Payday 2, you could replay a heist over and over, while certain parameters of the mission would change just enough to make it feel fairly unique on each playthrough, and have different objectives for stealth and loud on some heists. Unfortunately though, Payday 3 is severely lacking this. The game would be improved tremendously by simply having more options on how to complete heists, with more randomness for locations, and RNG with what spawns you get. The heists themselves though are definitely good, and in particular I enjoyed Under the Surface, and while it is a simple concept being an art gallery, the little puzzles in each of the alarmed rooms upstairs pose a small but fun challenge to obtain the loot without being detected. Each heist feels unique and expertly made, but it just goes back to the lack of options, as I don't want to play the same heist over and over if it's just going to be the same. Stealth overall has been improved, particularly with the adjustments to detection, so that you can have any equipment for stealth, making it considerably easier at a lower level, and easier to transition into combat if the heist goes loud. Unmasked gameplay has been completely overhauled, providing considerably more options while being unmasked. So much so that you can even complete some heists without ever putting your mask on. Areas of the map have been split into public, private and secure, with AI on the map reacting to you differently depending on which area you are in. In fact, the guards will now even escort you off the premises and tell you to behave, which provides a nice opportunity to take their keycard or even be a distraction for another player. The maps are spaced out great with multiple pathing opportunities, which also make use of the different areas and new utility options to make the game feel really fresh. One of the biggest changes to the stealth system was the pages, which now the amount you have changed depending on the difficulty you were playing on, allowing less pages at a higher difficulty. But for certain heists, there's also the addition of a lead guard as a modifier. This guard will patrol considerably more than other guards, which usually covers the whole heist, but the aspect that I personally don't like is that once they are killed, the pager will keep going off every minute. This essentially means that if you kill the lead guard, you either need to finish the heist quickly or you are going loud regardless, as you will eventually run out of pages. Personally, I find this more on the tedious side, and think it would be better balanced if the lead guard simply patrols more and costs all of your pages, as the other modifiers like cameras hack runtimes being reset after 5 seconds and no camera guard being a lot better for changing how you play the heist. When the heist does go loud though, gun gameplay has been enhanced a lot and feels really nice. Although I personally preferred the quicker game playstyle with Payday 2 and feel that a lot of the skills currently don't actually excite me. Something else I was sad to lose, for the most part, is that sprinting whilst in secure areas will be heard by any nearby guards, meaning that you have to be that much more thoughtful with when you sprint or crouch on by. This definitely helps to create the more grounded experience that Payday 3 is going for, but I will miss the constant sprint jump crouch that I got used to in the second installment, and the overall sheer speed of the game. Even with the game's horrible first impressions and lackluster updates thus far, steps have been taken to try and improve the game and create something that Payday fans actually want. I think this can be best seen with the changes to the armor system, as many players were underwhelmed with the system initially, creating a much slower and more tactical experience than what they're used to. The updates have been slow but consistent, and while the earlier content editions were rather expensive, which definitely did not help reception in the slightest, the newer edition of Party Powder released at a much nicer price point and currently sits at very positive on Steam. Additionally, the game is still in mixed, but the recent reviews are of a much more positive impression, and it feels that given more time, we can really have something special like Payday 2. It was just a shame that the game was clearly rushed in production and released much earlier than it should have. During the writing and recording of this, there's also been two big announcements in the Payday space. Firstly, Payday 2 will be getting content, so we're going to have to wait and see exactly what that will entail. But secondly, and sadly, Almir Listo has announced that he will be leaving Starbreeze. Almir has been the face of Payday 2 for such a long time and has been such a vital point for the community. He will be sorely missed, and I wish him all the best. The future for Payday looks unknown. They had the potential to rise to an even greater height than they did before, but only time will tell if they can actually accomplish that.